we go. Hi everybody, it's Puppy Badass and Keith. How you doing? Just having a good show. We got a special guest for you. Everybody knows him and loves him. We're gonna bring him up, Mr. Ben Coombs, King of the
Hey,
Airwaves.
Ben.
Hey Ben.
There,
How you doing?
Fancy.
Oh, top production.
I'm awake. Does that count?
Yeah, the blue lights help.
I set an alarm for this morning because I knew I'd have insomnia. If I got to do anything in the morning,
Yeah.
I count noon as the morning because I'm a musician. So
Yeah.
it went off.
Yep.
I told my phone to fuck off. That's how the alarm went off and went, fuck off! Oh, right. Alarm. Ed, right. Hi, everybody.
All right, and we bring up our time that co-host is just Kush.
Hey, everybody.
And then we got a special guest for Ben.
What?
Because this guy knows Ben better than anybody else, hauled his gear and everything, and we thought Ben would love the company. His buddy Mark Taft.
No, for fuck's sakes, this guy's
Hey,
been following me
guys.
around for 30 years. Oh, hey, buddy. No. My emotional support roadie.
Yeah, emotional support roadie. Yep.
Cool.
I think I've known you since since you were about 15 when you were at the your parents' restaurant, right?
I don't know.
About
Possible.
15 years old. Oh, okay. I won't say how many years.
I don't know. I've known your family since I was 11 or 12.
Oh, right. Okay, so that would be.
I'm trying to think.
My
I
gosh.
think so. See, I think you may have came in the restaurant once, like the big restaurant, just briefly to maybe trade some keys with your brother or something. I don't know, but I'm thinking more once we opened the takeout location in the fall of '92. That I know I met you then, obviously, because you would pop in for coffee on occasion and stuff. We advertised 25-cent cups of coffee, and this guy would take full advantage. Even though I'd give him free coffee, he'd still insist on dumping a quarter in the cup. And it's just like, you do know the coffee's been sitting there for 6 hours, right? He's like, I know. I'm like, why are you paying for it? Because I should. I'm like, no, you shouldn't. We paid for the 25-cent coffee, Keith, but he had no problem taking a free order of fries, the bastard. Yeah. But actually, Mark and I really started hanging out around 1993.
Cool.
And we have photos we've shown off on the internet to prove it.
Yep.
We have one of the first selfies ever together.
Yep.
Well, we're going to welcome in some people from the chat real quick. And we're going to get this person here is Zach Dong. Hello, Zach.
Hey, Zach.
There you go.
Hey,
First
Zach.
ever selfie by two people.
Hey,
Oh
Jeff.
my.
Jeff from Rifter Mods. Mitch Heyman.
Hey,
All
Mitch.
right.
Matt McCullen.
What's
Hey,
up, Matt?
Matt.
Hey, Matt.
He just hasn't gone to bed
Hey,
yet, so
Matt.
it's not morning yet.
Greasy Monkey.
Hey, Greasy.
Sleep for 7 hours between our shows.
Yeah.
Then we got the man himself of the hour, Ben.
Ben Coombs.
Not me. What?
afternoon, Ben says.
I guess technically, sure.
Okay, yeah. Um,
Sup, riffs.
I woke up and baked.
I
in
haven't
my
yet.
brain.
I'm working on it. Still got the red eye filter working on. That's when Keith said that. I got the green filter. I'm like, no, the red eye filter. Where you smoke this, the redder your eyes get. What?
Jeremy from
Yeah.
Strings and Pucks. Hey,
Yep.
Jeremy, how you doing?
What's up, Jeremy?
I might have missed your stream this morning. I just got up a little late myself. Then we got Steve Reeser. Is that you,
That
Steve?
guy is. That guy is
Oh,
nothing but
geez.
trouble.
Hey,
Oh,
Steve.
yeah, I know. He
Yeah.
hangs with us at times. He's nothing but trouble.
You're a charitable man, Ed. Steve hanging out with you and stuff. What?
Ben, can you email me?
Well, the
Some-
coffee's from 30 plus years
Oh,
ago.
that-
Might be a touch
What do
stale,
you-
Mitch.
Ben-
Oh, what a wonderful 5% coffee and clear Pepsi sold in the place.
Who's in the chat? So
Oh, itchy nose.
my brother Charles will show up for this one because you're
I could
on.
text him and tell him to stop being a dank and support his brother for once in his life.
Oh, go ahead. That would be fun.
Yeah.
I'm going to do that.
No.
Watch this.
Yeah.
We find Charles, which is listed as Charles 75N in my contacts, Ed, just so you know.
Yeah.
Hey, why don't you not be a jerk and actually tune into your brother's show?
You got a special guest this week.
Yeah.
I think he tunes in at times. He just doesn't say nothing. Sometimes he shows up, lately, but
Yeah, he's here from time to time.
I hope he's doing well. I heard from Charles Green, started on Charles Green's guitar, so hopefully he's got mine finished. But I'm still waiting for videos, you know what I mean, Ben?
Sure.
So Ben,
Yeah.
how long did you gig for a while, be in a band before you started this?
There was some carryover. I was doing both for a while. That's a good question. Let me think. Oh man, that was a lot of joints ago. I want to say
2011.
2013. I want to say 2011. No, I was still working for the military. Started my sound production company in 2012. Yeah, I think it was the next year. I was doing sound production for live events for a lot of local bands. We had a really thriving local music scene at the time of original music, and I knew a lot of guys in the bands, and they were having so much fun up on stage. I went, I want to do that too. So I literally looked over all the bands I'd worked with and who I had good relationships with, and most of you guys watching, if you know anybody that's played locally, you're lucky if you get a gig more than every 2 or 3 months, and it's usually a practice once a week or every 2 weeks. And I didn't want to spend months playing in a basement just to go out and play once every few months. So I found a local band that had been around for about 10 years at that point, and they had released albums, and they were playing almost every week, usually 3 times a month at the minimum. And so I met up with them. We had a jam. And then the ego thing, Ed, we finished playing, right?
Yep.
Kind of an audition. And we sat down. We're sitting around in the lounge area next to the practice area. And I said to the guys, I'm like, so do I leave my amp here or do I pack it up tonight? Got to put them on the spot because,
Yeah.
and they're like, well, do you mind going outside for have a cigarette outside? I said, not a problem. Let them talk. And I came back in. It was basically the only opinion, the singer who was the leader of the band, the only opinion he wanted was of the other guitar player. He was the one that had to work with me, the closest. And he says, he's a great fit. Let's bring him in. And so that was the start of actually gigging, because I had, trying to think, what would that be? 2013. So I would have been my late 30s. And I decided if I don't do it now, I'm not going to. Right. enough of this daydreaming. Oh, I wish I could get up on stage and play music. And then, threw myself into the deep end with both feet. Had never played in a professional band in any way. Like, I had a couple bands in high school, but we never made it out of the basement. So I don't really count them. So, yeah. And, ended up making a record and all kinds of craziness.
Here's Steve making trouble again. He's trying to say Charles is in the chat. We don't. I checked the chat out. He ain't there. Hi, Charles.
I'm always saying hi to the other Charles in the chat, though.
Yeah, we got Patrick Trey, a fellow Canadian, by the way, and he hangs out with us too.
My cousin's out in his neck of the woods right now. Actually, I have several cousins out there, but cousin Doug is actually out in Edmonton this weekend.
And then, as you said, we got Mark there, and we have Charles Green in the chat. Welcome, everybody.
Hey, Charles.
Welcome for joining us. So that was Mark. Charles saying hi to Mitch. And Charles saying, boys look great on.
Charles needs to clean his glasses, first of all.
I'm scary looking, so I don't know how great I look.
That's what I'm saying. I don't know what filter he has on, but
yep.
Nice. Yeah, so that's the story on gigging. Did a variety of bands over the years, as one does, and then music's good and all, but I thought, well, how do we get more exposure to like the last band I was in, and looking for another revenue source to offset the band, was starting YouTube, and I thought, hey, I can do some product demos, as well as live streams and stuff, and hopefully generate some, maybe pulling the income similar to what we were pulling in from merch sales with the original band, and did that. And then somehow the band fizzled out. But I will say, I'm gonna call out Keith here, because Keith's been around this community easily as long as I have, and Keith knows that, let's say if there's 100 of us in the chat that play guitar, Keith, and this is not derogatory in any way, but 90 of the 100 have never played outside of their home, bedroom, rec room, what have you, even jammed with friends, but then there's a handful that have either jammed with friends, had a band, maybe, of some limited success. And I found that when I started a channel, people are like, well, you don't know what you're talking about. You're talking out your ass. But the fact that I had a gigging band as well as doing the YouTube channel, they're like, oh shit, he knows what he's talking about. He actually goes out and plays on stage. And that was a huge benefit for the early first year or two of the channel, because it was that credibility instantly.
Right, yeah, a little street cred.
Cool.
Yeah.
Right.
The back room of your old place there. I still remember that studio, Ben. That was cool.
Yeah, I was there for what, 2 years, basically?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
Year and a half, 2 years of YouTube. The first year and a half, 2 years was, in another room. You're not the only one that had a bunch of boxes behind him on screen, Ed. I'm just saying.
Yeah.
Because it was literally a storage room I converted into a studio. Oh,
look who
there he
did
is.
show up.
The good doctor.
Oh, there he is.
Yes, he did.
Oh, and I see someone found his tone and showed up. Hey, Brian.
Yeah,
Hey, Brian.
And we got Timmy.
Hey,
Timmy.
Timmy.
How's it going, Timmy?
I don't remember how to do something here, because
I don't know how to do stuff.
Well, some of our viewers may not know. Well, they do. They may know you quite well, but I'd like to ask a question. I already kind of know the answer, but Ben, who was your main influence and to pick up this guitar? What was your main influences when you first started?
Oh, shit. There's a lot, but we'll narrow it down to a handful. I always knew I was going to play guitar. Like, that was a given from the time I was a little kid. Whether I was going to do it professionally or just as a hobby, didn't know. But I knew I was going to play guitar because I grew up with my father working in the music industry, both playing and working on the business side of things. So I grew up around musicians and that kind of lifestyle, we'll say. Like anybody that's hung out with a couple musicians, you get together and like one of these online hangs where we sit around and talk gear. I watched my dad and his buddies doing the same thing for hours on end, passing a bottle around, talking tales and stuff, talking gigs and gear and stuff. So, and like for me as a kid, Spinal Tap and the Blues Brothers were excellent music documentaries. For all the crazy stuff that happens in both movies, a lot of reality was in those two movies too. So, I kept saying as a kid, I want to learn how to play guitar. My dad go, piss off. You're a kid. You don't know. And then finally, when I was, 14, I think, cool. I want to play bass. He says, why do you want to play bass? I say, because you went through bass players like their underwear in your band, and every bass player ever had played in 3 or 4 bands at once. So that seems like a good thing because you'd always be playing. And he said, okay. That lasted 6 months, and I switched to guitar after that, but haven't looked back. But I would say, my dad, Ace Frehley, Eddie Van Halen, and Ronnie Wood, kind of up there initially. And the big reason, like Dad, obviously, because he's Dad. Ace Frehley, because he was always having a great time on stage. And same as Eddie Van Halen. Every time you see a photo of him playing on stage, he was always smiling. Now, I didn't realize that both Ace Frehley and Eddie were smiling half the time on stage because they're high as fuck while playing on stage. So the permagrin from Ace, I figured that out. Handheld forest fires really help with that. So yeah, I didn't know that, but I always saw my dad having a great time on stage too. So, and I knew it was a performance aspect. Like my dad being in music, my mom was more into the acting side of things and theater. So I knew there was a performance because I see my dad being smiling, having a great time on stage, and as soon as he got off stage, he'd just be in a foul ass mood. And I'd be like, what's up? And he'd be like, fucking snare drum was out of tune the whole night or something like that. But he would never let the crowd notice that. He would, put that all inside. And then he would vent afterwards, usually on the ride home, because I would travel with him to a lot of daytime gigs when I was a kid, just hanging around stuff. So.
Well, I think I got something for you, Ben, to share. I got couple things, but this one I think you like a lot. Okay. Because Mitch sent it to me, and this is one of his artist things of Charles. I don't know if you can see
sure,
this.
Right? That's for sure. Nice.
Then we got one of Mark in there.
Oh, no.
Kind of like yeah.
No.
I think Ben will enjoy it.
I bowl didn't take said bowl. That was dumb.
Where is it?
I had the opportunity to see Ben's dad play when I was 18.
We should mention the legal age to get into a venue was 19 at the time.
Yeah.
All right. Here's the other one.
They weren't big on checking ID.
No.
This is the last one I'll share, but I thought Ben will get a kick out of this one.
Oh, geez. Here we go.
Yep.
Oh, Jesus. Mark hasn't had that much hair in 10 plus years.
No, I know.
I love Mark, but he does not have that hairline.
We thought
it doesn't grow even anymore.
It's a good photo of you. This is what he could do with AI. So
I don't touch that AI stuff. I'm old school. I'm analog, vacuum tubes, circuitry.
By the way, hi, Matt. Malachi, good to see you. Yeah, there's a few people that come up with some good stuff, AI stuff, but we thought you'd enjoy that real quick. So how'd you get into doing YouTube, man?
How did I get into doing YouTube? Ooh, well, like a lot of people, I always say you can use YouTube two ways. See, have a bit of this, then the lips go numb. You kind of use it two ways, Ed. Like some people use YouTube like it's Google. Like you use that search window, and it's like, what does a Gibson Les Paul plugged into a Marshall sound like, right? And you'll find a bunch of videos, and you click it, and you listen to it. Boom, that's all it is. It's just information. How does this work? Blah blah blah. Well, it's about time you showed up, Zach Thong. Now we got to start over again. Great. Anyway. And then some people
Zach.
use YouTube more in the social media aspect, like I compared to Facebook, where you're more socially like this. This is social interactions with people. This is more like Facebook as opposed to Google, to use those two comparisons. And so I started hanging out in the live streaming community, following a couple channels, and I realized, like, at that time, nobody was doing a live show on Thursday evenings. So I started doing a live show on Thursdays just for a place for all of us to hang out on a Thursday because nobody else was. And so I started doing a live stream once a week with my best friend, Richie, who was also, we were in a band together at the time as guitar players. And so we started doing the show. And I remember people tuning in. They're like, wow, these guys got a really good rapport. I was like, yeah, we've been best friends for a decade at that time, almost at that time, playing in a band together. And, you really need to be in sync with a guy if you're going to be trading off guitar licks as dual guitars in a band and stuff like that. So, and a lot of people the first year thought we were brothers. And it was like, nope, you can tell we're not brothers because we have different last names. They look nothing alike, other than both had long hair and glasses. Which ironically, I didn't wear my glasses on stage, so that was odd. But anyways, and we started a Q&A show, and they're like, wow, these guys know a lot about gear, because we had spent that previous decade hanging out minimum once a week, if not twice a week, talking about gear. Like Mark would come over at that, because Mark got to know Richie just after I did, and Mark started helping me out with my sound company and shit. And so did Richie. And Mark would say the same thing he says after doing a hangout now. He's like, I learned so much when hanging out with you guys. I said, what are you talking about? Because he would just sit there and listen while we rant about the latest distortion pedal or something, going real deep dive, watching a 2-hour documentary on the history of the wah pedal, stuff like that. That's what we do.
I liked when we did some recording at Richie's old place there.
Yeah.
Cool.
The first album I produced was by a band called the Vatican Assassins, punk rock band, go figure. And I was going over one night. Mark was like, hey, what are you up to? I'm bored. I'm like, well, you can come on over tonight. And he's like, well, what are you doing? I said, well, we're recording some guitar tracks. He said, well, I don't know anything about recording. I said, I wasn't going to have you press record, so don't worry about it. In fact, we don't let people that know nothing about producing an album produce an album. Yeah. He says, well, what do I do? Well, you guys are doing that. I said, here's a pair of headphones. He said, okay. Just listen for mistakes. If you hear a mistake, just put up your finger, because I'm not going to hear you. Just, get my... And then the problem is, I don't know if you noticed, Ed, but Mark is a bit fucking polite. Sometimes too fucking polite for his own good. Yeah. So we would do a 3.5-minute song and pass through. And then when it was done, Keith, Mark would say, oh yeah, you fucked up in the first verse 20 seconds in. Why did you tap my shoulder? We could have just stopped and started over again. I said, as soon as you tell me, Mark, you have to tell me as soon as you hear something. Oh, okay. And then again, he interrupted our song. I'm like, oh, what? I was like, I didn't hear anything. He goes, no, it was about 30 seconds ago. I'm like, again? If we're going to have to do 25 takes of the same part, I'd rather you tell me after 1 minute than 3 because it makes me get a lot more done. And sure enough, he was. Now I'm going to blame hearing loss on my end and Richie's end because unlike the two of us, Mark never gigged and played on loud stages for hours and hours on end. So he's hearing things that we no longer hear, basically. And he's like, one time it was a noise issue, like just a little frequency interference. I didn't hear it. He didn't hear it. Mark heard it because apparently Mark has fucking hearing.
Yep.
So that helped. And without knowing it, he helped co-produce an album without really. All he had to do was just be a pair of ears, and it worked and it helped. What's up, Doc?
It did.
Yep, Dr. Kramer.
Dan?
Dan Gorman's in the chat. And sorry, Dan, I don't play the intro on this show. Sorry. Maybe later. We got Stephen Munch that just came in.
Hey, Munch.
Munch. And I think that's everybody that's come in so far. Yeah, it looks that
Very
way.
cool.
Yeah, I still remember those Tuesday nights, Ben, going to Richie's place
Monday
there.
nights.
Monday?
Monday.
Yeah.
Yeah, we did
Monday.
Mondays and sometimes Wednesdays. Sup, Guitar Bob?
Hey, Guitar Bob. How you doing, buddy?
Yeah, that was interesting because typical of don't let two fucking guitar players engineer and produce an album. Do you want to know why?
Why?
I showed up at the rehearsal facility, right? First thing we're going to record was drums. Set up all my mics. I record the drums for, I think we did 6 songs. It took me about 3 hours, 4 hours to take care of recording the drums, okay? I go home. Richie then goes over to the bass player's house, and they record the bass parts sitting at his kitchen table because you're plugging bass directly into the interface with no amps or anything. Larry lays down all the bass parts in an evening, okay? So that just leaves guitars and vocals. Now,
Michael Krause is in the chat. Ben, your favorite guy.
Welcome
The
to
one that
all.
that don't win the memberships.
One afternoon to record drums, one evening to record basses, okay?
Yep.
Guitars and vocals took 3 months. Working minimum once, if not twice a week. The reason for that is we had a lot of guitars on that album, a lot of layering and overdubs and stuff. So what we were doing is we did it all now easy. This is before YouTube. Limited gear and no actual place to record with microphones. In other words, we don't have an isolated soundproof area to record with microphones. Okay? So basically, Richie was playing a guitar into an MXR Dynacomp compressor pedal, set very mild, into a interface into a computer. And so we're cleaning guitars, and he says to me, because he's cooking dinner too, while recording guitar tracks. So you record a clean guitar, and this one song, he says, I want big guitars. Okay. And Mark looks at me and goes, what does he mean by big guitars? Easy. Now remember, this is a punk rock alternative band, not really big guitar band sound.
Yep.
So I start reamping stuff with he comes in, it sounds like Metallica's Black album. When he comes, he's like, Jesus, what the fuck is that? You give me like 12 Marshall stacks? I'm like, yes. And I layered it 8 guitar tracks deep. So it's a wall of 8 guitars playing through a wall of Marshalls each. He's like, that sounds huge. You wanted big. He says, I wanted big, not huge. So then I had to break it down. And Mark's just like, first of all, it sounded like just plink, 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 clean. And next thing he knows, he's hearing this huge, big Metallica sound. And it was all done virtually at that time. And you can hear it on the final album. You can tell we did a lot of digital work on it. But what are you going to... Very different experience than when I recorded my album. That's for sure.
Well, we got something special for you, Ben. Mitch has
Uh-oh.
just sent it, and I thought you'd like to see it.
Oh,
Oh, yep. Oh. Silly shit.
basically.
Oh,
I can
yeah.
say that. There was a handful of people that like subbed to me before I'd even started doing any content. So the first time I went live, I had 7 or 8 people watching that first way. Damn straight, Michael Krause, and I wouldn't want it any other way. And that crosses lots of channels, which is always good for fun.
Yeah, Zach wanted me to tell the guys how Jimmy saved our butts last night. We went on a different show, and we didn't know. I couldn't get a backing track up. Jimmy Biter came in and helped us out, which was really cool.
Sure.
Yeah. Jimmy's a good guy.
Backing tracks can be handy. I've used them in the past to learn guitar parts and stuff. Like it's one of those like where it says,
Hey,
"Oh,
Joe, come on.
we want you to play the solo to this guitar song or the song guitar song. They're all fucking guitar songs, man. You play guitar, man. But we want you to play the guitar solo to this particular song." I'm like, okay. Have it ready for next practice. Well, how do I come up with a solo without jamming with the band? I would bring up a backing track of the song on YouTube and then be able to play along to that to get the idea. Exactly. We always minimum 2, if not 4 guitars, and usually a couple of vocals too.
Okay. Oh, Dan was saying he's been one of our good friends. Coach.
Hey, Doc. Good to see you.
Yep. Will you support the use of?
Of course he does.
Michael B says, "Gotta."
What's up, Michael B? Brother Mike.
Or sharing appearance. That's cool, Mike.
So to answer
1
Michael's
second,
question,
fellas.
I was lucky that early in my YouTube journey, we'll say, I was able to have a few big guests on. Like he's talking about Shane from the channel In the Blues, which if you're familiar or not, I want to say Shane was in around 100,000 subscribers when he came on my show for the first time. And I've only been doing it for a few months, and it was a bunch of fun. And it's the only time I ever saw Richie was co-hosting the Sunday show initially, and he didn't much after that because he literally fanboyed out because he couldn't wrap his head around the fact he's interviewing a guy who's literally watched for 10 years doing gear demos. So he really valued his opinion on stuff. And another one was Henning Pauly from HB42's channel, who was probably one of the larger European channel. Again, 100,000 subscribers. And Henning and I got along, and he came on a couple of times early on, which was awesome. And both of them gave me a lot of advice on helping grow the channel and making things more professional and this and that. If you think my recommendations are bad, Ed, I'm not going to say, but each one of them wanted me to spend about $5,000 in equipment to bring the channel up to snuff. I never spent the $5,000.
No, but I thank you for your advice and your help at times. So it's greatly appreciated, Ben. So
It's just like, get this computer and get this camera and these microphones. I'm like, whoa, easy. I play in a bar band, and most of my money goes for guitar strings. So, see you, Mike.
Yeah.
All the Lewitt.
Later,
Michaels are leaving. That's funny.
Yeah, well, BBM came in. Yeah, he's watching while he's moving his studio. He's a real cool dude. You'd like him, Ben.
$5,000 upgrade the studio, Mad Hatter? No, that was just for computer, mic, and camera. Studio gear, throw at least another zero on, and I'd have no problem dropping $50,000 to put into this room just to bring it up to recording stuff for me, just between preamps, compressors, and mics. Well, $5,000 for a computer, probably for a high-end Mac.
Yeah, we all understand because I'm doing mine on laptops. You know what I mean, Ben? So
Yep. Yeah, I won't record on this computer. This computer is not adequate for that. That's why I literally have a producer down the road with a studio that I use. I don't record at home.
That's why
they don't have the gear. You know, it's like once you hear something really good, you can't unhear that. So you're always trying to achieve that quality of tone. And unfortunately for me, you know, not to brag, but literally when I recorded my album, it was recorded in is literally been voted at that time 10 years in a row as the top recording studio in the entire country. Because they have in Studio A, their main studio, have for those who know, a Neve console. If you don't know who Rupert Neve is, like it's literally the best record. That and SSL consoles are literally the best in the world, and they are all over the world. And this was a 70s vintage Neve console that's been in there forever. And holy shit, did it make sense? What's up, Jimmy?
Yep, Jimmy, my new best buddy and savior.
How are you, Jimmy?
Hey, Zax. Good to see you, Jimmy.
Yeah, we just lucked out that we had a business manager. He said, "Where do you want to record?" And I decided to be an asshole and mention the best studio in Canada. He says, "Okay, I'll look into it." And I said, "Make sure it's Studio A because they have the Neve board." And literally, I guarantee you, one of your favorite bands had recorded there through that board and that room. Countless, dozens. Like there's gold and platinum records all over every wall in the lobby, and it was like walking to any LA studio, top LA studio or New York studio in that respect. And I was just in awe and still can't believe it. And we released that 11 years ago now. So that we've been recorded September 2014 over Labor Day weekend.
So you still have an album from that?
I don't know if I have a copy of it anymore, but yeah, we self-published it after recording it. Unfortunately, our business manager kind of disappeared during the end of the production process, so I ended up having to master it myself, which sucked because it just sucked. And I never got the actual stems and stuff, so that sucked. But we ended up getting the album out eventually it was March of 11 years ago because it came my Memories CD release party. I love people I know have copies of the album, but I think I might have a copy. I'm not sure. I honestly, I didn't like the end result of the production on it. I wasn't involved in the mixing process, and I thought the original raw album that we recorded and mixed just that day sounded better than the finished product, in my opinion. Personally, you can't hear me on half the album, in my opinion. So, could be my ego. But also, I didn't understand as much sonics. I didn't know then what I know now, too. So, I would make a much better sounding album now than I did then.
Now, if we ever come across that recording and if you record it and send something down to me or even messenger it to me.
I don't know. You might be able to find some of it still online. I know there's some performances of me on my channel. I do use one of the longer intros on my show when I do the 3-minute intro with the video montage and it's a full band playing with singing. That's the old band.
That's cool.
Yeah. I used Scream, I want to say, Mark. I think it's Scream is the song.
I think so.
Which is that would have been the second single off the album. And
if you could send me that link for that one, I'll check it out.
I
sometime.
think let's see. Yeah, I want to say there was a Bandcamp page up a few years ago. The ironic thing is the leader of the band, Ed, wasn't very digital savvy, we'll say.
Yeah.
Okay, like he ran a Reverb Nation page, kind
Out
of.
of the kitchen.
He ran the Facebook page, but like I started the YouTube channel. I was the one that actually registered the album for copyright in Canada, so we can get paid if it was played on the radio. So technically, I own the rights because I copyright written the album, even though I quit the band years ago. So, which is funny. Yeah, I am saying that, Brian, and that's scary. Yeah. We were. Ironically enough, I didn't even play through a tube amp in that band. I played through a solid state amp because it was punchier and tighter sounding. We used a lot of gain. If for point of reference, be Godsmack, be the most similar sounding, or Five for Fighting, we sounded similar to. Shine Down, perhaps. Apparently, Lady High came up in Google as a result for our band. A Canadian indie alternative rock band formed in 2005, known for high energy, in-your-face hard rock performances. Yeah, that sounds about right, doesn't it, Mark?
Yep.
In-your-face high energy? Yeah, because our singer had the mic stand with the brass knuckles built into it, which he'd like to play with on stage.
Oh, yeah.
If you want to share that with us, you can, Ben.
Well, that's just AI here. I'll send you something off air, Ed, because honestly, we didn't split up under the best circumstances. So this is the most I've mentioned the band name on air in years, and Mark knows that. I like a couple members of the band still, and we're a 5-piece. So figure that out, Ed.
Yep. Oh,
What's up, Dark Rob?
Yep.
I'm not saying the singer still owes me $500. What?
Yep. I still remember that fun time. Well, I had told Ben that, man, one of my bucket list items is to get up on stage and belt a tune. So we were in Kingston. He goes, "Come on up." When you were doing the cover for the Drowning Pool tune.
Right.
And oh my, was I into it. And I still remember emphasizing, being very clear with my voice and that. And it looked like I was almost drowning out the lead singer, and he turned and looked at me and he smiled and oops, but it was fun. It was fun. I didn't think I could do it, but the encouragement, Ben was encouraging me to get up there. And it went out. That song was awesome. They blew it out of the water.
I think Jeff took the shit down.
Good to see you on the Puppy Badass show. Very cool. Yep.
Why don't I look when we're not live on a show? There's an idea.
The person I hired was, man.
Right. So basically what happened was when I left the band, because I didn't want to leave them in a lurch too much, and two things was key to them keep performing without me was, one, the guitar player did not have a backup guitar, and two, the main speakers in the PA system were mine. So I sold them the two main speakers, which were 12-inch Kevlar impregnated speakers, which you needed for a band, and an Epiphone Les Paul as a backup guitar for the other guitar player. and they made some payments on it, but did not pay it off. Do you like solid state amps or tube amps for gigs? Depends on the gig. For that tight metal sound, solid state worked, and it worked for my budget at the time. But given the option, I would use tube amps ever.
That's in somebody's background. I can hear
Yeah,
that.
that's my kid. He fired up the race car outside. Sorry, guys.
Oh,
I have no problem with
That
someone
sounded
firing up a race
cool.
car in the background.
Thank you, Ben.
Yeah.
Hey, Ben,
Yeah.
could we talk a little bit about your acoustic playing?
Sure.
yeah.
I'd love to know how you got started.
My dad had an acoustic guitar.
Ah,
Basically, like long story short, basically, so what happened was I tried playing bass from, let's say, August of '88 through the fall. Wasn't having a lot of success and fun. And so I decided, and it was weird because I didn't drink or do any kind of drugs at the time because I was a kid. But I decided I never wanted to forget what day I started playing guitar. So I literally waited until January 1st, 1989 to pick up a guitar to start learning it. So that's why, bing, it's in my head. And so my dad said to me, well, you can use my shit until you get your own, because he had stopped playing at that time. Like, if he was going to go out to a jam, chances are he just took his acoustic. But if he's going to go to an electric jam, then he would, obviously it's his gear. So I was handed, what's it, like a 72 Martin D28
wow.
and a 67 Telecaster and a silver-faced Vibrolux amp.
Beautiful.
That's what I said. Okay, cool. Wasn't really into tellies. Like tellies, think 1989. You were outside of Nashville, you didn't see a telly. But, Kush, I'd see Keith Richards playing tellies, and I always liked the Stones, and Izzy Stradlin,
Yeah,
the Enigma. Again, huge influence on me, Izzy Stradlin.
I love Izzy.
He played. I was like, "Who's that cool guy in the background playing a telly?" In the "Sweet Child of Mine" video. Turns out it wasn't actually a telly, but it doesn't matter. I think it was a Charvel, but it was telly shaped, so whatever. The influence was there, and so I started playing both. Depending on what mood I was in. And the thing is, with a D28, as soon as you strum a chord of some kind, I always say it's like like you can dial in a sound on your electric, and depending on the distortion level and the chord you hit, you'll hear a certain song, and so you'll start want to figure out that song because you'll hear that tone.
Right.
Okay, strum any fucking chord on a Martin D28. You're going to hear Led Zeppelin, Pink Floyd, Neil Young, countless, because everybody recorded with either a Martin D28 or a Gibson Hummingbird for every acoustic track for years. If it sounds mid-scooped, it's the Gibson. If it's more mids, it's the Martin. And so that was, I didn't have to tone chase, Kush.
Right.
So immediately, and I just, I watched my dad play acoustic as much as electric at home. And so I thought, okay, well, to be a guitar player, and I heard like a lot of people wrote on acoustics and stuff, or again, seeing what limited music documentaries are out there. Sure, you're playing electric up on stage, but backstage at a festival, there was a jam session. It was always a bunch of acoustic players. Like I remember my dad, when he worked at the music festival, taking the acoustic. I remember every time we went on to visit friends, if the people were going to played, it was always the acoustic. Dad didn't bring an electric and an amp to hang out at a friend. They sat around with a bunch of acoustic. Probably because they're all old hippies and they all owned acoustics too. That's where it started. And then I asked my dad about finger picking, and his response was, Kush, and I shit you not, and was true. He says, "You'll figure it out." I said, "What does that mean?" But I realized at that time, in his generation of guitar players, like from the 60s and 70s, no two people really finger pick the same. They all kind of finger pick their own unique. And he says, your finger picking style is like your signature. No two are the same. And that's why if you listen, and not again, I'm not to brag, but my finger picking is kind of different than most people the way I do it. And I don't even know what I'm doing half the time. I just fuck it, let it go. Just hope to pull some chords out here and there. If anything, I don't know. It's kind of somewhere between Jimmy Page and Steve Earle is my acoustic style. If that makes sense, folks.
I really appreciate the way you play the acoustic.
Thank you.
Real do. Your dad got you into that mainly because your dad was in a band. I can tell that. That's how.
Yeah, he played in one band mainly, and then after we opened our restaurant, he couldn't do both because we need more free labor at the restaurant. That's how it works, right? So he quit the band, but he stayed on as president of the local chapter of the musicians union. So he kept his hand in the industry, as it were. So he'd go out to shows and he'd sit in with bands from time to time. Excuse me. I often think of, I had a cousin that was into music when we were in our late teens, Ed, and he lived a half hour away. So he'd come down to my place on a Friday night, and he'd spend the night or whatever. But we'd be hanging out at my place, and then he's like, hey, our restaurant was open till 10. My dad was usually there for another hour or so while the cleaning staff, took care of the cleanup and closing down and everything. And he's, hey, let's go over to the restaurant and talk about music business with your dad. That was his thing. Hey, let's go talk about your dad about music business, because he knew so much about it. And I was like, and I was kind of like, I don't want to. I've heard these stories 5 times already, but he wanted to. So, all right, well, let's go. And we would, and sit around and smoke cigarettes and drink coffee and talk music. And my dad would be just sitting there holding. At that time, he smoked a pipe. It would be great, Keith, because you'd ask my dad a question. You'd be like, so what's it like to get signed by a label in the 70s? And he'd sit there like this with the pipe. And he'd say, well, you see. And then he'd take a drag off the pipe and pause. And it was fucking Dave Coombs pause. It's like this. And then he would, very much in that Bill Cosby kind of cadence. Like he would say when he would explain something to Theo on the show, Kush,
right?
Well, you see, and then there's a pause, which means pay attention, boy. And so and my cousin just enthralled by my dad dropping all this knowledge, whereas I was just like, I knew all this shit 10 years earlier because I grew up in it,
Yeah. Mitch had sent something else I wanted you to see. I think you'll like this one, Ben, of you.
He's like, shouldn't I be putting in cult leader? I said, no, put in not a cult leader. He says, doesn't that just open up more questions by corporate?
Yep.
I said, sounds like more of a you problem than me. Scum of the earth. Save your trash until you get home, throw it in a receptacle.
Yeah.
Even worse is people that throw trash like on a sidewalk and you can see a garbage can like 20 feet away.
Yeah.
What I used to do myself is I'd have a bag in my truck just for garbage, and I put my garbage in the bag. Not that way I don't throw anything out, and I'll throw it away when I get somewhere or at home when it gets filled. Exactly. I gotta start doing that again.
That way you can throw the whole bag out at one time.
Yeah.
Now, granted, now that spring, well, not now, but earlier in the week, I did pick up about 25 cents worth of empty beer cans from the side of the road that people have been drinking and driving.
Yeah.
Or maybe they're riding shotgun drinking. Not that I ever did that in my life. I've done that several times in my life. They're like, what are you doing? I'm like, road beer.
I have enough
See you, Bo.
Tonight. All right.
This coffee's cold. That sucks. I don't like cold coffee.
Matt Hatterfields, I feel the same way about litter bugs. They are a bunch of
lazy ass people.
Yep.
Oh yeah, hell yeah.
That's why I'll turn did you say this is a lifestyle choice and why I have fix from having eat
Yeah.
top random in truck stops burritos because I can't afford to feed real
Yeah.
food now.
None of us can afford real food after we buy nice cigars.
Hmm.
But
See
it's
what
getting pretty
Timmy
late
says.
there, Ed.
Yeah,
See what Timmy says, Ed?
because I always have a bag in my truck. Then I got divorced.
Divorce.
Good one.
That's a good one. Yeah, it's getting a little late. I think we go a little over if Ben wants to, but otherwise we can go on a private chat in a few minutes.
I'd say wrap things up only because I have something moving inside me. That's all good.
Okay.
IBS is real, folks.
Okay, we're gonna read off the names of people to support and check out the channels, and then we're gonna go to put the link in for private chat, and then we'll end the show. Charles 75N, Charles Green, Mitch Heyman, Ben Coombs, Brian Search for Tone, Bill Guitars, Pits and Hoarders, Jeremy Strings and Pucks, Music Therapy Laz, Barry Bathat, 012 Crew, Uvi, CD Nelson, Quentin and Steve, Jay Allen, Cherry Shreddings, Brandy Miller, Uvi's wife, Joe Wesnick, Baby Boy Mulligan, String Pickers, Tone Jagger, Birdman, Spectrum Studios, TED Talks Guitars, Fret Knot, Smoke Eaters, Herb's Fireside Studios, Keys for the Love of Guitars, Matt McCullen, Michael B., Mrs. Smith, Malachi, Rick Rinstorm Official, and Ron Gunner, Fretworks. And that's all on the list. So check out these people and check out the channels. Check out Ben. Give him a like and sub. And everybody stay safe. As Ben says, don't litter. Charles Green says, do something nice with somebody
Yeah,
for
that's a
no
good
reason
idea.
at all. And everybody stay safe. The link is going in the chat. So anybody wants to join us for in the private chat is more than welcome.
I will say, if you stay safe, though, you're not as going to have as good a time.
And as Ben would also say, have a good time so he don't have to.
Oh, I always have a good time.
But everybody stay safe, take care of your families, and we'll see you on Monday night show. Take care. Later all.
Bye, everybody.